Alright, Malifaux fans, welcome back to another Malifaux video battle report. This is Crazy Carl from Weird Forums, back with a 35 Soulstone scrap. Today it was going to be me playing my Dr. McMourning crew against PatLane from the Weird Forums, also known as PatLane, playing Lilith's Brood. So very interesting matchup, two very strong melee masters, although McMourning, he's kind of more of a utility master than a melee master, but I guess you could make the same argument for Lilith. So here's the board we played on, very similar to the board from the game I posted last week. Bunch of hills, a lot of line of sight blocking terrain, the kind of terrain I really like to play on because it gives you a lot more tactical, I guess, options because you can hide from things. You don't necessarily have to engage right away. The schemes and strategies worked out as such. We both took Breakthrough. Pat took Stake a Claim on that hill up in the center. I had Bodyguard on Von Schill, which you'll see in a moment, and we had Shared Contained Power, so it was going to be a pretty tough game for both of us because both of our masters are very resilient. So here you can see my crew. I have Betty Noir off the table. I have Von Schill, which I have Bodyguard on, a pair of Canine Remains, a Zombie Chihuahua, a Rotten Bell, and a Punk Zombie. And I believe I had an 8 Soulstone cache because that's what I try and work out towards, but I guess if you really want to, you can do the math. So yeah, Bodyguard on Von Schill, generally very easy to do. I was hoping that McMourning would be able to kill Lilith with his Willpower spell, Racked with Pain, but we'll see how things go later on in the game. PatLane brought a pretty nasty crew. He had a Lilu, a Lilith, 2 Terratots, Primordial Magic, 2 Desperate Mercenaries, and the Black Blood Shaman to go along with Lilith. So he was going to be able to get quite a few blood counters and grow up those 2 Terratots into big, mean Gribblies very, very easily, which, in fact, is what he did mostly on his first turn. My big concern was trying to take out Lilith, too, because she just gives so much board control, and she's generally against this kind of crew, priority number 1. I had a friend compare her to a Rotten Bell the other day, like, yeah, Lore's so good. I'm like, it's so very different. The double take is what really makes her very deadly. So, going into turn 1, you see Lilith kind of hid down with the rest of the crew. And we had the Black Blood Shaman getting a bunch of blood counters from those from the first Desperate Mercenary. Pat was saving up for the next turn to take out the other one. So he was able to grow up a mature Nephilim quite easily because he was able to get the required 9 plus masks. I think he had 11 masks to be able to grow up. And Lilith just kind of jetted up the table to meet up with Von Schill, who had also moved up the table. Although she was hiding behind a building because she didn't really want to take pot shots from Von Schill. My first turn, by comparison, was pretty boring. I moved up my crew. I used a bell to lure up a model. I think it was the Punk Zombie just to get him into position, and I had a pretty poor positioning. I made the same mistake. I made a pretty big mistake this game in trying to go up through this center column, which had it looked open, but it was open because there was a forest, and the forest is not good for McMourning's crew. I mean, Von Schill doesn't care about it, but everything else does, and as you'll see later on in the game, I got bogged down pretty hard. So I cut up a couple models. I believe I killed a Chihuahua. I'm sorry, not a Chihuahua. I killed a Canine Remains to summon up a Flesh Construct, which I just kind of tossed up there as kind of a sacrificial lamb, if you will. I was just tossing it in the way to try and tie up Lilith for a turn or two. As it turned out, he actually was pretty useful. No one was more surprised than the Flesh Construct, I think. So going into the next turn, you see that the Mature Nephilim has jetted up the board, and it took out, I think, the Punk Zombie. It's been about a week since I played this game, so I apologize for any gaps in my memory, but I do remember he did a pretty nasty job, and he was able to use the knock aside trigger to jet back out of combat, so he was able to keep himself safe very easily. Very nasty trick. While all this is going on, I didn't get a shot of it, but I had Bet Noir pop out. This is in turn 2. I had Bet Noir pop out and kill off Lilith, so you can see the back of the board here. Lilu's off to the side, but Lilith's dead because I had her killed with, Bet Noir. He wasn't able to take her out with his melee strikes, but he was able to take her out. He was able to get 2 wounds on her, and she popped at the end of the turn, but I was able to use one with a knight to bury again, so it wasn't an issue. So, speaking of burying and unburying and all that jazz, you see Pat grew up another Mature Nephilim, and Lilith popped out to try and transposition. She was trying to swap Von Schill, I believe, with like the Primordial Magic or something, but she wasn't able to pull it off. I think Pat cheated in a 7 of masks and flipped a 1 on his Soulstone flip, so he wasn't able to get the transposition off, which slowed him down a lot. He was pretty displeased, but it really didn't do anything that crazy. As it were, I was just moving up to him anyway, so it didn't matter. Speaking of moving up, I had my Flesh Construct move up the board. It actually took a shot at Lilith and hit her. I was very surprised. This Flesh Construct was doing pretty awesome. He was unfortunately the only model I was able to summon for the entire game because I didn't draw high enough crows. But you can see here the Flesh Construct doing a pretty good job. He took a chunk out of Lilith, and Lilith just kind of ignored him, and she went off and did her own thing afterwards. But I was pretty chuffed with that, as the Brits say. So you see Von Schill after, again, I don't have a picture of it, but Von Schill popped out and took out Lilu with a severe damage because Lilu hadn't activated yet to regenerate, and he had taken 3 damage at the end of the turn where I killed Lilu 2. So Von Schill got off a severe damage with a critical strike, which was pretty awesome for him to take out the Lilu. However, the Mature Nephilim came over and started taxing on my Soulstones, knocked a lot of damage off him, and I was forced eventually to start doing Soulstone flips to keep him alive. Not the best position for me to be in. As you see here, we're getting towards the end of the game. I had McMourning still alive, but it ended up being the end of the game was pretty brutal. I was able to take out, I don't have a picture of it, but I was able to take out the Mature Nephilim with McMourning eventually to kind of get rid of that threat. However, I did have to deal with Lilith. I still had to deal with my schemes and strategies. I had Von Schill fall to the Mature Nephilim before McMourning was able to kill it, which was very unfortunate. I flipped a Black Joker for my healing flip. Very not good. So Bet Noir popped out. I had her charge Lilith to try and paralyze her and deal with her, but not much really happened there. I had McMourning dash in. He was able to hit with the Scalpel Slinging, so he got in, did some damage to Lilith, cost a couple rack with pains, but wasn't able to finish the job. And in my efforts to kill off Lilith, I went through a lot of Soulstones. So I, unfortunately, was able to kill her. Lilith won initiative on turn 6. She was able to do, I think it was like 10 damage to McMourning. It was pretty brutal. Knocked him down really low, and then used the 0 action to have the Blackblood Shaman activate. The Blackblood Shaman walked over, cut himself for 6 wounds to do 3 to McMourning. I keep on mixing them up. McMourning made a Soulstone prevention flip and failed, so I was unable to keep McMourning alive. And as it were, Betty Noir came over and tried to take out Lilith, but was also unable to do so. So, as it ended up, Pat ended up getting 2 points for the contained power because his Blackblood Shaman killed off my master. And I ended up getting no points for any of my schemes or strategies. So, a very, very close game. Pat got 2, I got 0. It was a lot of fun, and I'm really looking forward to the next game we play. And I hope you guys enjoyed it too. So I'll see you guys next time.